Abstract ideas. How children, teens, and adults define abstract concepts. The subjects involved in this experiment represented three varying age groups. Group 1 was children, Group 2 teens, and Group 3 young adults. In Group 1, the subjects involved were a 7-year-old boy, who was referred to as Subject 1, and a 5-year-old girl referred to as Subject 2. In Group 2, we had a 14-year-old boy, who would be Subject 3, and a 16-year-old girl, who would be Subject 4. For Group 3, we had both 25-year-old male and female subjects, the man being number 5, and the woman being subject number 6. Each subject was asked to define three terms: love, happiness, and alive. No prompting was given to any subject. They did not know the questions before we asked, and we took exactly what they said and recorded it for this purpose. There were varying similarities and differences for each group and as a whole. We're going to start with the similarities and discuss what these were, and later on we'll be discussing why these occur. When we asked the subjects about love, all the subjects except for one gave a notion of projection of love onto somebody else. For the most part, irregardless of age, gender, or any other defining characteristic, they all seem to define love as something that was given to somebody else, or something that can be received, but not something truly intrinsic. With happiness, the answers varied by age group, but within those age groups, they gave very similar answers. The children defined happiness based more on a physical property, while the teens defined happiness as something that they felt, and the adults questioned happiness. The lie gave us what could possibly and arguably be said to be the most interesting data for this. As we got into the older groups, both Group 2 and Group 3 used negation when defining what a lie was, and it made the assumption that the proctor, myself, knew what truth was. Their definitions of a lie were the negation of truth. A lie is an untruth or not telling the truth. When it comes to the differences, we see some differences both by age group as well as within the age groups themselves. As I said before, with love, all but one defined it as a projection. However, the children, Group 1, used very specific word selection as well as physical representation to help define what love was. They defined it, the subject number 2, the 5-year-old girl, defined love as a marriage, something that she could see and something that she could physically understand. A marriage between two people is love. While the 7-year-old boy, subject number 1, defined love by using the word love within the definition. This is the only time that we saw this throughout the entire experiment, with the exception of when people asked, what is happiness? In happiness, we saw a non-existence property in the adults who felt it very difficult to define happiness because they weren't even sure happiness truly existed anymore. The children, Group 1, again related it to physical, to receiving an item or when you smile, something that can be physically seen, physically experienced. Age Group 2, the teens, took a much more emotional outview on that, and they decided it was going to be something that made you happy. But they didn't exactly use happiness. It was fun. It was having a good time. Those are the kinds of things that they got at with happiness. So each group defined it very similar within their groups, but again, each group had a very distinct idea of what happiness was. It was a non-existent property. It was an emotion. or with the group 1, the children, was something that can be experienced physically. We talked about earlier the similarity of the negation and the assumption aspect with the adults. The difference here is going to actually be with the children, because the children saw a lie as a whole concept idea. Instead of relating it to something else, a lie was in and of itself its own being. So a lie wasn't an untruth, it wasn't not telling the truth. A lie was saying something that you didn't know was wrong. A lie was doing something without malicious intent. So for them, a lie is not necessarily a negative aspect, it's just something that exists in the world. There were some very interesting variations that we can see by age group. The biggest and most obvious one that we saw was that as we asked questions to different age groups, as the years went by, these sentence lengths got a lot longer. The children never gave one-word answers, but their answers were very short and concise. What is love? Love is marriage. What is happiness? That is when you smile. These are very short answers that sum up their entire thought process in a matter of seconds. The teens gave a little bit longer answer. Theirs usually consisted of 1 to 2 lines of dictation, which was nice, but wasn't quite as full as the adults who averaged 3 lines apiece, with the exception of subject number 6, the 25-year-old female, who, because of varying circumstances, was in a bit of a rush and was giving very short answers because I don't think that she was fully aware of what she was answering, and a lot of hers were also negations. We also noticed a lot of stuttering and stops that vary by age groups. With group number 3, the adults, as well as with group number 2, the teens, when we asked a question, there was a pause. They would answer the question, but they might stop halfway through the question to make sure that they were agreeing with what they were saying and to make sure they had a nice flowing sentence after that. With the children group, there was a lot more stuttering and a lot more stammering with things like but, oh, things of that nature. The teens exhibited aspects from both stuttering and stopping, which shows a variation that could lead us to believe that as we get older, we use stopping as a way, as sort of a silent stuttering or a silent stammering process. In order to better understand the whole abstract idea, I went to Google and did a search on the children learning abstract ideas. I found an article titled Manipulating Objects and Telling Words, a study on concrete and abstract word acquisition. This article gave a really good and in-depth view of how we learn both concrete and abstract words. It also helped to explain why Group 1 seemed to relate things more to the physical than the other groups do. According to this article, there is a good possibility that as we learn to express abstract ideas, we don't use modal or amodal terms singularly. We actually use everything around us, and a big part of what is around you at that age that you can experience is the physical world. So as such, you want to make sure that the other person can also understand that, and if it's physical, they can see it or they can touch it, or you can show them what you mean, so you can better get your idea across. As you get older, you tend to stray away from this because you now have an understanding and you believe the other person has the same understanding that you do about the topic that you're discussing. I hope this sheds some insight onto how different age groups define abstract ideas. Thank you.